All right, let's dive right into this explainer and tackle what's arguably the single most critical challenge facing the forestry sector today. We're looking at the technicalities of reporting climate resilience strategies. If you follow the industry at all, you know that managing a forest isn't just about planting and harvesting anymore, right? It's about predicting the unpredictable. So today, we are going to unpack exactly how companies must structure their discussion and analysis to properly disclose their climate adaptation performance. I mean, it is literally the multi-million-dollar question. How do you accurately price climate risk in the forestry sector? Global climate change creates this massive long-term business uncertainty. We're talking about wild variations in precipitation, shifting temperatures, way more frequent extreme weather events, catastrophic forest fires, and the sudden migration of tree diseases and pests, like the absolutely devastating mountain pine beetle. Any of these factors can severely impact timberlands through increased mortality or diminished productivity. And because of all that variability, accurate and standardized reporting of your resilience strategies is absolutely vital to your investors and stakeholders. So to actually solve this reporting challenge, we're going to look really closely at SASB metric RFM-450A.1. I know that sounds like a mouthful, but think of this standard not as a compliance burden, but as a real strategic blueprint for structuring your climate resilience narratives. It requires a detailed description of your strategy to manage both the opportunities and the risks to forest management and timber production that are presented by climate change. Ultimately, it's designed to move companies away from those vague, feel-good sustainability statements and toward rigorous, strategic disclosure. Here is our agenda for today. We will start with the climate adaptation mandate, move into segmenting your risks and monitoring timelines, discuss the actual cost of resilience, and finally, we'll map this whole thing to global frameworks. Okay, Section 1, the climate adaptation mandate, beyond the baseline. Let's look at the macro-level stakes of climate adaptation. The SASB standard mandates that you report on two very distinct categories of climate impact. First up, the physical impacts. This includes things like increased temperatures, changes in seasonality, water availability, pest migration, and of course the frequency of extreme weather and fires. But you can't just stop there. You must also analyze the regulatory and transitional impacts. That means disclosing how your operations might be affected by existing and potential legislation, like emissions taxes, cap-and-trade systems, international climate accords, and even indirect consequences, like shifting stakeholder concerns or brand-new localized harvesting restrictions. Now, what's really fascinating here is how SASB categorizes this metric. If you look closely at the right side of the table, under the category column for RRFM 450A.1, you'll see it is explicitly classified as discussion and analysis. This is a crucial distinction. Unlike some other metrics that just ask for raw quantitative data, like the exact number of hectares certified, this one demands a deep, qualitative, strategic assessment. Basically, you have to clearly explain the how and the why behind your climate strategy. Moving on to Section 2, segmenting your climate risks, granular analysis. Because when it comes to forestry, a risk in one region might actually be a massive opportunity somewhere else. Broad strokes simply aren't enough here. The standard explicitly requires you to break down how potential climate-related risks and opportunities vary across your specific operations and exactly how you prioritize them. You have to segment your analysis across 4 highly specific categories: the geographic regions where you operate, your specific products or markets, the actual types of tree species you harvest, and whether the land is a plantation or natural forest land. And this brilliantly illustrates how the standard forces reporters to get super specific. By requiring a contrast between plantation forest lands and natural forest lands, the standard acknowledges their distinct vulnerability profiles. I mean, think about it. An actively cultivated monoculture plantation is going to respond very, very differently to a new pest migration or a drought than a diverse, naturally occurring forest ecosystem would. Your disclosure absolutely needs to reflect that nuanced reality. Next up, Section 3. Timelines and monitoring procedures, the procedural elements. Okay, so it's one thing to identify a risk. It's another entirely to prove how you are actually keeping an eye on it. The standard mandates that you disclose your risk management procedures regarding climate change by explicitly outlining these sequential steps. First, you must state exactly how far into the future you are considering these risks. Are you modeling for 5 years out or 50? Second, what is the frequency of your monitoring? And third, based on that monitoring, how do you establish your alleviation and adaptation strategies? Oh, and you also need to discuss the methods or global models, like those from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that you use to develop these scenarios. Which brings us to Section 4, the cost of resilience, strategies, and financials. Once you've defined your monitoring timelines, the metric requires you to detail your on-the-ground strategies, and crucially, what they cost. The standard draws a very distinct line between two types of strategies here. First, alleviation strategies. These are designed to reduce risk and immediate damage. Think buying insurance, diversifying your tree species, or deploying tactics to reduce the intensity of a pest outbreak or a fire. On the other side, we have adaptation strategies. These are focused on long-term shifts. Things like improving overall ecosystem biodiversity, developing and planting climate-tolerant tree varieties, and actively optimizing the timing of your planting and harvesting to match up with changing seasons. And here is the absolute most critical takeaway from this section of the standard. It is not just a narrative exercise. Every single one of those strategies, whether that's buying insurance or researching new tolerant tree varieties, must be accompanied by a clear disclosure of its financial cost. You have to quantify the potential financial effects of these risks and the literal cost of your strategic response. This is where the narrative ties directly back to the balance sheet. Finally, Section 5, Mapping to Global Frameworks, the Compliance Blueprint. Let's look at how this SASB standard acts as a unifying solution for global reporting. This visual matrix right here is basically your ultimate cheat sheet. It brilliantly illustrates how your narrative under SASB maps directly to other major frameworks. For instance, your strategic analysis and financial effects under SASB simultaneously fulfill core requirements of the CDSB framework. And when you disclose risk likelihood or your management procedures, well, you're directly answering sections of the CDP Climate Change Questionnaire. Structuring your data this way is going to save you immense amounts of time. Understanding this alignment is essential, especially given some recent structural shifts. Back in August 2022, the ISSB of the IFRS Foundation assumed responsibility for the SASB standards. The ISSB amended these climate-related topics to basically align them with the industry-based guidance accompanying the IFRS S2 climate-related disclosures. So, what does that mean for you? It means mastering this specific forestry metric ensures you are already speaking the global language of the unified IFRS sustainability reporting standards. As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a thought. Take a hard look at your current reporting. Are your current climate disclosures merely ticking compliance boxes? Or are you actually utilizing the incredible depth of metric RRFM 450A.1 to truly prepare your forest assets for the future? Shifting your perspective from viewing this as just a regulatory burden to seeing it as a true strategic resilience roadmap, that's what will ultimately protect your assets and drive long-term value in a rapidly changing climate. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this framework today, and I really hope this helps you build a much stronger, more resilient strategy moving forward.